I am Porto born, but we will now run an Iberian platform for magazines and data, both in Portugal and in Spain. And Iberian Property is our brand for international investors, all in English, all information about Iberia.
Great, thanks. Maria, let's start with you. Just give a brief introduction of you and what you do.
Okay, my name is Maria Santa Marta. I'm a Porto-born lawyer. I work mainly in the corporate M&A and real estate sectors for around 20 years. And my brand now is a CCA law firm, which is a medium-sized law firm with offices in Lisbon and Porto. As a matter of fact, I'm the head of Porto office. And we are around 80 lawyers, and it's a full task law firm, so full service law firm. Basically, that's it.
Great. And Ricardo, you very generously just gave us the overview, but didn't tell us about what your day job is. So tell us what you do, Ricardo.
I do nothing. I think that's the best role of a politician. But I'm in charge in the city hall for economic, tourism and commerce, and I'm responsible for the agency promotion of the city, Invest Porto, that is the API agency for the city.
Great, thank you. Anna.
Hello, my name is Ana Jordao. I'm here representing Predibisa, which is a real estate agency in the Porto, specialized in the Porto area, now in the market for 30 years. I'm responsible for the residential area, and we also work with the corporate area, which includes hotel, retail, logistics, and offices. We are very specialized in the Porto market and in the northern region.
Great. Hugo.
Well, my name is Hugo Lima. I'm representing Lucios. We are a construction and real estate development company. We are celebrating 75-year-old in 2019, and we have been developing real estate projects over the past 40 years. We act nowadays as a one-stop shop for investors, so we provide turnkey solutions for investors. We do the procurement, the design, the licensing, the construction, and we act on residential, hospitality, offices, logistics, well, the entire scope of real estate.
Okay, great. And this is designed to be an open session, so if you've got questions that you want to ask, please do. Just let us know. We're also going to be looking both at some of the trends in the market, the opportunities in the market specifically for Porto, and also provide some of the solutions just in terms of actually how you access the market, what's happening with things like the REIT regime, and pick up on some of the points about how developments may work there, and also look at some of the sectors. But let's maybe first of all start, perhaps just with you, Maria. Portugal very high on the list at the moment for investors. We've heard from Ricardo some of the macro factors there, particularly things like language, technology, innovation and startup. What's driving that for Portugal, do you think, and also particularly how's that influencing Porto in the region?
I think the environment, the economic and social and also the legal environment has been very helpful to attract foreign investors. The tax benefits that have been launched by the government is really attractive. We have the incentives to the rehabilitation of the assets, so basically within the rehabilitation areas, namely with the transfer tax reimbursement and municipal tax reimbursement, and also reduced VAT rate for the works that are done in the rehabilitation areas. And we have the new product, which I think it's very interesting for foreign investors, which is the the REIT regime, which is well known within Europe, namely in the UK and in our neighbor in Spain, which has been a very successful product. And for foreign investments, the tax rate is 10% withholding tax, which is really, really attractive. Basically, and I think within this context, and particularly in Porto, I think we have also a good environment because we have the Porto town hall, and the entities are welcoming the investors. They have a very close approach with them, and they are have a constructive approach in order to solve problems, to create new products and innovative solutions, and the result is really that you see a lot of international companies coming to Porto to set up their headquarters, which is really a certification that what I'm saying is true.
And that's quite interesting, Ricardo, because often before, if we'd have been having this discussion, I mean, it's interesting just to see how far the market has moved on. I mean, it's people now forget that, it was Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Spain, and now we're looking at it, and it's a completely different picture. How much of that has been, I suppose, from government action, reaching out to investors and deliberately making it an attractive place for companies to come and invest?
No, I think that really, I think that Portugal nowadays, and the numbers say that, so it's not an opinion, it's a question of facts. So we are the country in Europe where FDI investment is growing faster since 2012 until 2019. And if you go deep in the numbers, inside Portugal, Porto and the north part of the country is growing higher than the national average. And the reason, of course, is that we have a crisis. The crisis was profound. Most of the crisis was connected to problems on a financial system with the central government indebtedness. But the availability of talent in the country and the capacity of the country to fight, and the question is the entrepreneurship that we have in the north part of the country. In 2011, the weight of exports in the east part of the country was 33%. So we have reached 50%. So it means that we have a huge transformation in terms of the economic landscape of the country. People have been more prone to make businesses, and the private sector has made a fantastic recovery. And Porto, since 2013, let's say, we have a very pro-business stance in terms of investment. So we are attracting a lot of foreign companies to the city. And we feel that in a world where a lot of people is building walls, we are a city that builds bridges, and that's relevant, because I think that the combination between technology, and we are very good on that, so the digital side of the economy, talent, the availability of talent, and tolerance, and this free tea, this fair tea is very, very relevant on a new world where economy is based on human knowledge, human capacity. And for you to engage in this kind of economy, you should have this tolerance approach. And I think that's why I'm really believing that Portugal will have a very bright future, and Porto in special.
Ricardo, it was nice to have some examples of which companies are you talking, to try to be more concise and to understand, are these shared service, technology, export, goods? What is the level of qualification that people is asking when coming to Porto?
We have let's say a very multifunctional kind of companies that go inside the city. I can give examples of companies making nearshore services, just like Adidas. I can give you examples of technological centers, just like Euronext, going from Dublin to Porto, or Natixis coming from Paris to Porto. I can give an example of a unique design center from Vestas Wind, and it is the first European design center for Vestas. And last but not the least, the BMW Development Center in City Center. That is a unique project for a German company, and German companies are investing a lot in the city and the region. And BMW will set up their technological center in the city. So saying this, so it means that I truly believe, and I was talking about this, that we can be the next Silicon Valley, because we have the talent, we have the companies, and we have the wine. and I think that Portuguese wine is much better than Napa Valley wine. So I think that we have an incredible combination between working, living, and enjoying life in the city and the region.
That's sounding like an invitation to everybody here to come to Portugal and drink the wine, I think.
That's it.
Good. I think it would be interesting, Anna, now, just to pick up on some of the, I mean, we're talking here about new opportunities, and I know you've got some slides that actually show a little bit about some of the opportunity zones. I think if you click through, it should come to a couple of the things. And I think it would be useful just for people to be able to pick up on what we actually mean in concrete terms about some of these new opportunities.
Okay, so our first slide here, we have the city map where we can see the residential projects that are being under development currently. So you can see a huge amount of projects that are ongoing now. We are talking about around 280 different buildings that are either being constructed from scratch or to being old buildings that are being refurbished. Approximately around 4,000 apartments that are now in the market for sale. This shows the big opportunities that we have around the city. Ricardo also talked about new expansion areas, which we also reaffirm this interesting zones where we still can find big plots for major developments. One next to the sea, so at the western part of the city, and another big area closer to the eastern part of town, where we can also find big plots for developments. If we go back to the one important figure, which is the price per zone, where we have the most expensive apartments facing the sea in the Foch area, and in the city center, which have been recently very hot, where we can find also very much expensive projects. Going further, like Ricardo mentioned before, many of the new offices that have moved to Porto, some of the brands that have installed their offices there. This is a different way of looking into the Porto market. We have very high talented people there. That's why those offices are moving to our city. They are looking for different kinds of spaces, so we are constructing new complete buildings for these people that want to move to Porto. They need large spaces, large buildings, so this is clearly an opportunity for investors in Porto. We are lacking offer in these segments. So these are, again, the new trends of offices, so larger spaces that are well thought for the people to be happy, to co-work, to cooperate, to share their ideas, so a different way of looking into the office market. Coming back to another segment that Ricardo also mentioned, the tourism, we are still lacking hotels. So the occupancy rates are very high, so we need more hotels. So again, a new opportunity for investors. And in terms of, although we have many residential projects, we still are lacking offer in the medium segment. We have high-level projects, luxury projects, but we need investors for affordable residents.
Okay, great. I mean, Hugo, as a developer, it sounds as though it's an ideal timing for you at the moment in the market, with opportunities to develop and a lack of stock in a number of areas. I suppose, as a developer, how are you seeing working with the city? How do you see regulations? And also, where are you seeing the opportunities at the moment? What sectors are you looking at?
Well, the cooperation with the city, I think the city understood that they have to compete with other cities to attract investment and talent. So they are very engaged in making things happen. In terms of the licensing process, we have seen a huge increase in the number of new processes, and the municipality is not that fast adapting and bringing new technicians, but they are making a huge effort. In terms of the timeline, and if I may give you our most recent example, we've submitted a licensing design, and we got the approval for the architecture in 9 weeks, and now we will submit the technical design, and we will have the permit in less than 6 months, which I think it's very interesting. In terms of the opportunities and acting as a one-stop shop for investors, we are having demand for hotels from management companies, investment funds. We also are developing student housing, which has a shortage on the market. And with all these companies that the municipality is being able to bring, and with a lot of residential products that were turned into local accommodation, we still feel that there's a shortage on residential and affordable residential on the market. So we think that there are opportunities on that point.
Okay, good. And there's a series of slides here. We won't go through all of them, but they'll all be available to people afterwards so that you can download those and we'll share them with you. There's a lot of detail to get through, but the idea was that within that set of slides we can share afterwards, there'll be a lot of information that you can also use to access. Just if we move that slide on one, because there was a current investment opportunity there, I think that I think you wanted to talk about, Hugo.
Well, this is one of our 18 projects that we have ongoing. This is the biggest one. It's in Porto city center. It's a multi-complex that we are road showing here in the fair. It's a 50,000 square meter. Well, and it's a multi-complex project where we are going to develop an hotel, student housing, retail, parking spaces, and offices. Okay, good.
Yeah. Let me try. What kind of deals, what kind of investors do you want to meet here at Expo Real? Debt investors, equity. What kind of deal are you trying to propose?
We have limited equity and debt capacity, so there are some projects where we can't reach because we have to choose. We will be keen to meet new potential partners, equity partners or debt partners. And we also have some yield products that are under development now, which has rental contracts or long-term lease contracts, and then we want to sell. So we are targeting yields between 5 and 6%. This is our target, and we are able to sell these products.
Okay, good. I mean, it's been interesting to watch in Spain how the REIT market has substantially changed things, I think, Antonio, there. Yeah. It may be worth just briefly, I'm just going through the REIT parts, just so that people could understand, I suppose, briefly how that works and what the opportunities might be there.
Mm-hmm. real estate investment regime. So basically, it's the REITs, the regimes similar to the one existing in Spain, with some little differences. But basically, it's an investment vehicle which is basically consistent on a listed company, which is a stock company, with it's a measure that was launched this year. So basically it's a recent model, but basically it's the same as the one in force in Spain. And the basic requirements is the minimum share capital of 5 million euros. The shares are admitted to trading, either on a regulated market or a multilateral trading facility. And basically there are no restrictions on the transfer of the shares. Its corporate purpose mainly it's the investment in assets to be leased, okay? And you could either have assets in a development process, okay, urbanization projects, or similar contracts with a regime similar to the lease contracts, the so-called use of shops in shopping centers and services agreements, similar to the lease, but without being subject to the Portuguese lease regime. You can either have stakes in other subsidiaries which have similar corporate object as the one as of the REITs, okay. Basically stakes in other CGs, stakes in other companies with real estate activity, and stakes in Portuguese alternative investment vehicles, the funds, investment funds, or SICAVs, and so on. The investment requirements. Basically, this is a rule that has been recently been stabilized and clarified back in September. The free float that is now in force is that as from the third complete year of the admission to trading of the CG, at least 20% of the share capital of the CG should be split among investors which hold less than 2% of the voting rights. But this is only as from the third complete year, and as from the fifth complete year, this minimum threshold will be increased up to 25% free float. The level of indebtedness should be 60%, and you have the rules applicable to the distribution of the dividends. So basically, 90% of the profits of the subsidiaries of the CG should be mandatorily distributed to the CG, and of this full amount, 75% of these of the profits of the CG should be distributed mandatorily to the investors. Okay, which is very interesting rule. So basically, I think these are the main
topics, and the other detail is there for anybody who wants that. We'll share that afterwards. That's great.
Yes.
Interestingly, let me just grab that and I'll bring it back to the panel thing. Thank you. Antonio, just from your perspective, because obviously you're looking at Spain and Portugal, do you think that potentially this REIT regime will have a similar impact to the one in Spain? Do you think it's going to increase the liquidity and therefore the attractiveness of the market?
In Spain, when the law was really in place, it took like 1 year to the first SOCIMIs to list, and then it took like 2 years until we saw a lot of Socimis coming to the market. So there is a timing, and I believe in Portugal we are in this timing area where people need to fully understand what the law says. And I believe there is a lot of people looking on the details of the law, and I believe it will take us perhaps 1 year to see the first coming in the market. But then I believe if the overall economic conditions are there, Portugal has all the way to do a similar path to what Spain has done, and with that attract a lot of new money that usually does not invest directly in the assets and like to have these kind of listed vehicles to be indirectly, but with a legal framework that is fully European comparable and that fully people understand. So I will say in 3 years' time, it will represent more professional operators, more money coming to the market, and with diversified sources of money. Yes, and from Spain, because the success of Socimis in Spain can revert to the Portuguese law. Yes, I'm a deep believer.
Okay, interesting. So Spanish money may come into the Portuguese
yes,
market
of course,
through that route. One of the things I just wanted to pick up on quickly, Ricardo, with you is you've obviously got set aside, Anna just mentioned them there as well, the sort of areas that you're looking to develop, and these are some of the new opportunities. What's the plans for that? Is that an urban regeneration? Is it areas that are currently due to be demolished and rebuilt? How are you working with that? Because obviously, as a tourist area, part of the charm of Porto is that it has old buildings. So how do you balance those things?
Let's say I think that Porto and the luck of Porto is that we have a urban regime where it's built on the premise that you should try to rehabilitate everything, so we don't demolish nothing. So this is relevant in the sense that I think that we can say that we have a unique city, really, because of this simple rule. Because it has protected a lot of heritage that we have in the old parts of the city. But looking at expansion areas, the kind of thing that we intend to do is let's say, we don't believe that one size fits all. We should go and look at the different realities and the different objectives that we have in different parts of the city. So the expansion area in the eastern part of the city, for instance, we will make it through a rehabilitation area. So it means that we have set up an operation rehabilitation unit that is run right now by Porto Vivo. And if you want to have information, you can go to the Porto stand and see the information that we have there. So we have a proper vehicle for that part. If you go, for instance, into Porto Innovation District, this is a plan that is something that we are making with university and the Polytechnical and the City Hall. So it means that it's more just like an organic thing, and where we are setting up special rules to develop that part of the city. And on the seaside, this is 100% private. This is an operational program that we have for this part of the city. It has been freeze for the last 25 years, and we will finally go ahead with it. So, we don't have too much land, a plot of land in our size, so, but we will launch programs for affordable housing, where we will launch with the private sector, so we will have a lot of, let's say, projects where we are using private investors to go with us to make residences in the city. We have public investment, and we are investing a lot in terms of the city. We are the city in the country with the highest percentage of social housing we have 12% of the city in social housing. This is the average rate for Finland, for instance. In Portugal, the average rate is 2%. The government has an objective until 2030 of 6%, and we have 12. And again, this is relevant because you go to Porto, and you don't see social housing in the sense of the traditional social housing, the ghettos that you see in a lot of countries and in a lot of cities. You don't see that in Porto. And why? Because we have this tradition of mixing together people. And this is relevant also because it means that we have a lot of land in the eastern part of the city that we think can be a unique part of the city for offices, for residents, and for high-end residents in that part of the city.
Okay, good, thank you. Antonio, I'm going to leave it to you to ask the sort of last question because we're sharp on time now.
Yeah, my question is, I believe many times people ask me this question, but I believe you might do it better. If anyone in the room represents a fund with 100 million, where do you advise them to put money, Anna?
Well, I would recommend a mixed project that would cover the 3 different areas that we have mentioned, the residential use, hospitality, and offices. This is what I would...
What kind of hospitality? A classic hotel, new formats, hostels? Well,
I think
where is the opportunity for you? Try to be more concrete.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
Hugo?
You'll sell your project, of course. But rather than that,
yes,
Anna.
but I still think that, and I think we saw on the slides, we have 1,600 bedrooms of 5-star hotels. So we are now receiving a lot of American and Asian tourists, which fit this type of product. So I think there's still room to develop more 5-star hotels. There's still a shortage in the number of rooms, so we have been seeing an increase in the number of beds, but also on the number of tourists. So there's still a gap. Also on student housing, there's a huge shortage on the market nowadays. And as I told you before, residential, affordable residential. There's a huge market for that.
Okay.
Porto is a capital for not only for the city itself, which is quite small, but for a broader region of around 3.5 million people. So would you prefer to keep invested with Ricardo and keep in the core, or you'll be able to check a little bit this big Porto metro area?
Yeah, I think of course there are opportunities outside the skirts, but the Porto city center is very well served by transportation. All this urban rehabilitation that we have been seeing is bringing restaurants, is bringing life, is bringing people. So I think we have better conditions to provide better solutions in the city center rather than on the outskirts of the city.
Okay, that's great. Very interesting that, I mean, so I was at the recent Portugal Real Estate Summit that Iberian Property run, and I think there were about, I don't know, maybe 20%, if not 30% more people than the previous year.
Yes.
So that also is an indication of just how much international capital is beginning to look, particularly at Portugal and Spain. But Portugal, whereas before, the discussions I always used to have would be, yes, it's lovely Portugal, it's fantastic, and I'd love to go there and stay there, but actually it's just too small, not a liquid enough market. But that perception definitely seems to be changing, and certainly if the Portuguese Real Estate Summit was anything to go by, that's changing in quite a major way.
And there is another important issue, because at the beginning, in early days of our recovery process, we have seen more opportunistic capital. Now more core capital is coming, and a lot more diversified base of investors, even private money from Turkey, from Brazil, from China. So there is plenty of money, money that was not usual in Portugal, and it has been a mix of private, institutional money from many different locations, and that gives a really different notion of risk, because now we have more flows, more incoming, and more balanced.